Hi there, and welcome to Season 3 of the Humans and AI podcast. In this podcast, we dive into the real-life stories of the top leaders and entrepreneurs within the artificial intelligence, high-performance computing and data center space. These people truly are at the top of their game. We've got honest and authentic conversations with our guests. We're going to chat about their career journeys, the highs and the lows, and even the lessons they've learned from their mistakes, and the victories they've celebrated along the way. It's all about sharing their experience and knowledge. We talk about the company they're currently in and how they see the future of the space. So if you're looking for practical advice from people who have walked the same path, or just a little inspiration, you're in the right place. We're going to be releasing new episodes on Thursday at 12, so make sure you stay tuned. Hi there, Prashanth. How are you doing?
How you doing, Nick?
Very good, thank you. Well, it's great to see you. Great to have you on board. We've been talking about this for a little while now. For the benefit of our viewers, do you mind just introducing yourself? So, who you are, your current role, where you're working, and then we'll dive straight into it.
My name is Prashanth. I am currently leading marketing at Salad Cloud. Salad Cloud is a GPU cloud, and the way I like to describe it is, as much as a marketer, I hate the term. We're Airbnb for GPUs, right? Which is, our mission is to democratize cloud computing. So what we do is, on one side, we have over 450,000 gamers around the world who share their GPUs when they're not gaming. And then on the other side, we have AI companies running inference, training workloads, some training workloads, data processing pipelines, molecular dynamics simulations, all of those on our cloud. And I'm the solo marketer here. We're a Series A startup. And my background is, I started as an aerospace engineer back in the days. And I like to say I back-ended into marketing, or sort of in aerospace terms, I crash-landed into marketing. First job out of college was leading technical marketing for an engineering software product. And I stayed with the product for 11 years. And it's a funny thing when you're an engineer trying to learn marketing on the fly, because we had a couple marketers on the team, but most of us on the team were engineers. Very small team, 12 people, marketing team, and revenue of close to 100 million. And being an engineer doing marketing was very different than being a marketer doing marketing. I've seen it over the course of my career. And right from my first day, I am doing engineering 50%, running workloads on a data center that's right next to me. And then the other 50% was trying to think, okay, how do I connect this with the customers? And now I'm an engineer. I can spell bullshit from a mile away. So that automatically helps, cut down on the marketing bullshit that actually comes out, which actually ended up working out really well. So yeah, I stayed.
I was going to say, I don't meet many, people in marketing that come from an engineering background. Must give you quite a distinct advantage, when you're trying to actually appeal to your audience. So, what would you say the major sort of benefits from being an engineer moving into marketing have actually helped?
I would actually say it depends on what you're marketing. And that's always one of my favorite beliefs, one of my core beliefs is that if you're marketing a technical product, you need technical people on your team as marketers. But if you're marketing a SaaS product that's not technical, I don't see any core difference that comes from being an engineer. Obviously, you can say things like, well, you're an engineer, you're going to be data driven, all of that. That comes for everybody, right? That comes for everybody. I think where the challenge comes in is not actually being data driven as an engineer, but it actually comes in understanding more about the product. So obviously, in my case, I've been an aerospace engineer. I've run HPC simulations. I've run data center simulations all my life. And so moving into a company like Salad, I understand the GPU space. I understand data center space. I've been a user. I've been a customer of GPUs and CPUs all my life. So that actually helps when I'm marketing a technical product. But if, say, I was going and doing marketing for a company like Gong, sales software, I don't actually see any distinct difference between being an engineer and a marketer, because it comes down to individual habits. And so, I don't usually buy into the trope when people say, oh yeah, engineers, they're very data driven, so they're going to be data driven marketers. I don't think that's true at all. I think it comes from domain knowledge.
And you're right. Obviously, the fact that you worked in HPC, you've been running models all your career, certainly helping you now, working with Salad. And obviously, you've been a marketing, engineer, technical marketing engineer, senior manager. Building communities as well, something you've done quite a lot of, isn't it? So it's not just building out marketing functions, you've been creating an ecosystem, you've been creating communities. How's that sort of worked out for you throughout? Because I think that's a really difficult thing to do, and I've actually seen lots of businesses really struggle to build those communities. How have you gone about doing that?
Post ChatGPT, community building and branding. I think those are the two levers that any business has that actually moves the needle when it comes to marketing. Because I think all of the lower end functions, whether you talk about product marketing, content marketing, customer marketing, the lower end functions are all being democratized by AI. What back in the days used to take, I worked in larger companies where we had teams of customer marketers. Their whole job is to go and work with customers and come back and write stories. Today, that's not the case. So I think community is one of the biggest differentiators that still exists post the AI era. And in my case, I think my community building days started from, I used to work for a company called CD Adapco, which was a maker of an engineering simulation software. We helped design planes, cars, baby incubators, and then Siemens bought us in 2016, handed me the keys and said, okay, you and another engineer, you guys get to run this 300 or $200 million product. So my induction into community building started out more out of a necessity, because all of a sudden we have to continue growing this massive product, $200 million, with just two of us. We had a larger team, of course, but the resources were small, the budget was small. So then we turned around and we sat down and we scratched our heads and said, okay, how do we go about doing this? And then we realized, okay, LinkedIn's where all of our audience is. Let's just double down on LinkedIn, creating content that's interesting for engineers, right? Like, so for example, when the World Cup comes in, there's a free kick. We'll go and analyze the aerodynamics of a free kick. And then, instead of, when our competitors were still talking about, hey, digitalization, digital twin, how to bring about digital twins into your process, we flipped the funnel. We flipped the content funnel on its head, and then we focused more on things that were in the news. And then all of a sudden, we saw the surge of all of these engineers who would also start doing these same things, right? Like they would go post on LinkedIn with our software saying, hey, I analyze, the airflow in my house, right? Like how it comes in. And all of a sudden we started getting this organic content just growing from the bottom up and from engineers. And that's really hard to do because engineers are very shy when it comes to social media. And so that really was the genesis of how I got into community building. And then over at Appian, when I joined Appian, we had a community of around 40,000 developers. Appian was a low-code platform, which means anyone can pick it up, anyone can learn how to code and build an app. There's some coding, but then it democratizes the app building process. And our goal was to grow from 40,000 to 200,000 developers in 1 year. It had taken us 4 years to get to 40,000. Now that's a huge ask, but
that's massive.
But the way we did that was we completely, and again, this is where sort of the product marketing comes into play, is when we stepped back and we looked at who was the actual developer, we were focusing solely on convincing current developers to say, hey, take up this low-code tool. You don't have to code everything. You can build apps with this low-code tool, which cuts down your coding. But then we were missing the massive market of people who want to get into tech, who have some sort of tech background, but we were never marketing to that audience. And once we initiated that switch, that's really what brought up that massive growth that we achieved. We hit 200,000 developers, certified developers within 1 year. And all of that growth came from just understanding the audience and just looking at areas where you usually wouldn't look.
So for you, you just changed the dynamic or the profile of the audience you were looking at, went for them, looking in multiple different locations, really turning out the rocks then, so to speak. And you took it from 40,000 to, did you hit the 200,000 mark?
200,000, yeah, we hit the 200,000
in 12
mark.
months.
I think in 13 months or 14 months, but I think, no one was complaining. And I think that's one of the biggest things today also is if you go on Twitter today, there are so many indie developers, right? Like, for example, there's Levels.io, Peter Levels, and then there's Alex Wen, and so many indie developers are building in public, and then they're building communities in public, which is why when one of them builds, vibe coding, the new trend, one of them builds a product, there is an inbuilt audience, right? Like within a month, Peter Levels, one of the developers, he built a product, he built a game, like an airplane game that you can just fly in, had a massive audience, and all of a sudden grew to, I think, he was at 300 or 400,000 ARR within like 2 or 3 months. There are startups with full-blown teams who are struggling to do that. And then there are all these indie developers who are coming in and building communities, sharing their stories, sharing their build in public, who are managing to beat out established teams with established marketers and established sales teams. And I think that's what we're going to see more of in the future, is building a community out in public, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. So yeah, communities I think is one of the last standing difference makers.
And for those that haven't built a community before, what is the main, what's the value? So, for a company like Appian or, Salad, whatever it may be, what is the true value in actually building that community? And then how do you actually measure that? And then third part of this question is, how do you take advantage of it? How do you actually capitalize on that as well?
Yeah, I think this one of my favorite questions is, and this is a struggle with marketing and the rest of the functions within a company, especially the leadership often, is that we're always looking for short-term values to associate to the campaigns that we run, which makes sense, right? Like from a sales perspective, right? Like I'll work for leaders, sometimes sales leaders will come in and ask you, what's the ROI on us running $100 billboard? Your monthly budget is $30,000 and you still need to justify an ROI for a $100 billboard outside an event where all of your developers are going, right? Like, so that idea of always having to tie value to something and being able to measure that value is very much ingrained in the mentality of all of the companies. But how do you measure the value of a community is, number one, it's just belief, right? Like you just have to believe that when you have a massive amount of your ICP, your audience, say for example the GPU cloud, right? Like it's all developers, AI developers, machine learning developers. When you have a massive amount of your audience talking about your product in private and in public, that has value in itself, right? Like, so step one is actually building that community. Once you've built that community, I think looking at it from the perspective of what's the value of us building a community is the wrong question. The right question is, we have hundreds of developers or thousands of developers who use our product. How can we build a community where they can foster conversations, they can be champions for our product? And then you think about, how do we leverage that? So that's the first thing, is you have to truly believe that community is a differentiator. Then once you go about building the community, that's the easier and the hard part, because the easy part is today anyone can build a community. All you need is a phone, and you get Twitter or LinkedIn or any of that. Anyone can build a community. You cannot build a community with a company profile anymore, right? Like for example, on LinkedIn, this is one of the famous experiments on LinkedIn that many people talk about, is when you post something from your company profile, it gets very few impressions. But when a founder or a VP of sales or a CTO posts something, the same post, it gets more impressions, right? Again, you've seen the same thing probably as well. And that's community itself, right? Like community doesn't just mean you're building a Discord community, you're building a website or all of that. Community has multiple layers. Community is also about people and their audience, and then the platform where you let people engage with your audience. And then the third way, that the final question is, how do you actually leverage that community? I'll give you an example. One is, for example, in the past when we were building communities at Appian, one of the reasons why we wanted to build that massive community was we were selling enterprise deals. And these companies would come in and say, okay, I want 1,000 Appian developers over the next 2 years. But we don't have that many, right? There's only 40,000 certified developers in the market. So it's actually good for the business to have more developers, so that we can go to customers and say, here, sign a $10 million contract. There's 500 certified developers right here on our community. Go and talk to them, right? Like go and hire them. So that's a business value for a community. So in case of GPU clouds, how do you leverage that community? Is developers trust developers. Developers trust other developers. So since you and I are in the GPU cloud space, I'm talking about that. Is how do you leverage communities? Is because there's so many neo clouds today, right? Like what's there? I think there's 30 or 40 different cloud providers today, aside from the big three, maybe even more.
Oh, I mean, I think I read something that's about 160, but they could be, 1-2 man lady businesses, where they've just got a load of hardware. But there's a lot, and it's going to change. I think that's the plan. Fast forward 2 years, it'll be less.
Yeah, it'll be less, and so the key thing for the business is, how can you be one of the remaining ones and not the ones that are left in the dust, right? Like, and And to do that today, I think the differentiator in the GPU cloud space, availability used to be a differentiator.
Yeah.
We've got H100, someone else doesn't have H100s. Used to be differentiated, not anymore. Because compute, there's plenty of availability. Price used to be a differentiator, not anymore because there's a price race going on right now. And so the next one is obviously, community is going to be a differentiator. When you see more and more people building on a cloud, developers tend to trust more. And then when a business is ready to make a change away from hyperscalers, or they're just growing massively, they're obviously going to trust the company with a larger community of developers who are actively promoting that cloud provider in public, in private, rather than an upstart, up-and-coming company that says, when both offers are the same, we tend to believe the one that has a larger community, right? And that's just true in real life. That's also true in marketing.
And so obviously you get a developer that is using your product. Yeah, it's not compulsory they become part of the community. So how do you create a community where that developer wants to be involved? Where's the I suppose I was asking about the ROI for you, but actually what's the true benefit for that developer to participate in this community?
Yeah. So full disclosure, right? At Salad, we haven't managed to build a community yet. And that's just because we're a very small team.
Yeah.
I'm just the only marketer. But in the past, for example, at Siemens, when we had the engineering software, we had a massive community of thousands of engineers. And what's in it for them is we had community forums, right? Where they can come in and this is where the value for the developer is the first reason why anyone would join a community is because there's something of value for them. If I'm an engineer, I go and ask a question, 10 different engineers answer, that's value for me. If I'm an engineer, I have a product idea. Today, product ideas work in, sales calls.
Yeah.
Right, sales teams are talking to them, support teams are talking to them, and then a customer comes in and says, I would really like this feature, it goes somewhere. But then in the community, one way to activate that is your users can come in and put forward ideas. Other users can vote on that. And this was a system that we had back in the engineering days that worked really well. And that was tremendous value for our customers and for our users because all of a sudden, not only are they getting answers to their problems, they can also come in and influence the direction of your product, right? So that's the value that you can offer from community. And then the third value is, I think that's just more of a mental thing for anyone, whether it's engineers or developers, is we all want to find like-minded people. That's why Reddit works, right? That's why Reddit is a multi-million-dollar business. And you can see the most obscure subreddits, and there's still people who are there commenting, contributing for free. Why? Because I think Reddit is the best example because the people who are contributing are not getting anything in return. But there are millions of subreddits that exist only because people find value in being around people who are similar to them. And I think that's the thing that businesses also have to take forward.
So speaking of obviously Salad then and this GPU AI world that we find ourselves in, so you're the head of marketing. You talked about the differentiators. So one of which is price, as you mentioned. Then it's the actual supply. Others we've had around sustainability and green power as well. And then probably the first time I've heard somebody actually outwardly say community is actually a differentiator. And I can definitely see the benefit. And I think, and it may well be that because this neo cloud world that we're in, or GPU AI world is so new, and it's new yet it's rapidly growing, that we may not see so many communities just yet. I mean, as somebody running marketing now at Salad, I mean, what do you think the biggest focuses are, maybe for Salad, but also for other GPU businesses now? How do you create that competitive edge, do you think, over the next sort of 18 months?
It's going to be very interesting for the next sort of 18 months because one of the, from personal experience, right, at Salad, when we first launched Salad Cloud in October 2023, our biggest differentiator was price. We launched with the message that we're the lowest priced GPU cloud in the world, which worked at that time to get our initial traction. Then we switched it to, we narrowed down our focus and said, we're for AI inference at scale, right? Now our message is price, security, and also scale. So now we're operating on 3 levers. But the more levers we unlock, the more we are starting to realize that other GPU clouds can also unlock the same levers because that's the direction that the market is going in. So in the next 12 to 18 months, my take is outside of the hyperscalers, there are a few clouds that are really, really good when it comes to branding, right? Like when it comes to branding, you go out there, you go on Twitter, you go on LinkedIn, you constantly hear about developers talking about, running models on these clouds. They will stay. And then the other ones are the ones that have huge margins for someone like Salad, right? Like we don't own any infrastructure. Our infrastructure is rented and we act as a marketplace. So the ones that have the higher margins can continue winning the price war. And so we will also stay. And then outside of those two, I think where the differentiator for clouds come in the next, out of the 160, if 30 or 40 stay, I think the 30 or 40 that actually stay, the biggest differentiator is going to be brand for them, right? Like brand in US and I think sustainability in Europe. And then over in Asia, it's price. That's how I see it is because for all the US companies will always talk about sustainability and green energy and all of that. But at the end of the day, this is a very capitalist market compared to Europe, where you've already seen stories in Europe of AI companies choosing cloud providers specifically because they're sustainable. They are powered by green energy.
Yeah.
You don't see stories like that come out of the US often. So I think it also depends on the target markets. As in the US, it's going to be about brand. It's going to be about who can get in front of the audience, who's got the better branding, who's got better brand perception. And I think in Europe, it's going to be more about sustainability and delinking from the US ecosystem. And then over in Asia, I think it's about price.
So it's focusing on, obviously, sustainability in Europe, and the GPU market in Europe is huge. I would argue that it's probably bigger in the US, right? So that's just the reality. So if you were to prioritize your workload as somebody in marketing, you're probably going to go, right, how do we build our brand? And so how do you go about actually building a brand? Because it's one thing just being the best. Yeah, that always helps. But if you're not, CoreWeave or Nebius is really sort of taking charge now in the US, right? So, but if you're actually coming up against those two, how do you build a really strong brand in the US competing with those, where you become an attractive alternative?
Yeah, I think CoreWeave and Nebius are two really good examples because one, CoreWeave's kind of like the darling for the non-hyperscaler cloud today, right? Like they're one of the ones that have actually really gone up there and tried to take on the big giants and actually gotten tremendous traction. And Nebius is interesting because Nebius, for at least in America, Nebius came out of the blue just in the last 1 year. And it kind of runs parallel with their fundraising and how much funds they've raised, which helps them be everywhere. So if you're a NeoCloud today and if you're trying to go up against the CoreWeaves and Nebiuses of the world. And in terms of building your brand, brand to me is everything, right? Like it's everything from your LinkedIn post to the way, your people are out there in social, the founder story, the product story. Brand can be anything and everything. And I think that's what really helps the NeoClouds take on someone like CoreWeave or Nebius with a lot of funding, right? Like because all of a sudden, with the AI tools as well, to build really good brand, you don't need, obviously you need that continuous drumbeat of that CoreWeave and Nebius has, showing up at events, being everywhere. That's part of their branding, right? Like, because if I asked you, hey, what's Nebius's story? What's CoreWeave's story? Can you tell me?
Probably not really. There's only so far deep I can go.
Exactly.
I'll probably run out of things to say within the first 2 minutes.
Yeah. So I think in terms of story, right? Like when Airbnb came in, they had a very clear story that resonated with everyone. But for someone like CoreWeave or Nebius, I personally don't see them having that story. Their brand is built based on, one, spend. They can be everywhere. And two, all of the, obviously they're both great companies with great products. That also helps. So if you're NeoCloud and you don't have that war chest of funding, how can you actually go about building that brand? I think you have to rely, one, on speed of execution, right? Because you don't have that money, you don't have that funding, so you have to rely on speed of execution when it comes to marketing. So bring in a lot of AI tools into your process, right? Like today with AI, even one really well thought out video of your CEO, or maybe an avatar of your CEO, right? Like having a conversation with another avatar of your CEO, right? One really well done video can tell a story about your company that, it can have the same impact as a really well-produced, polished video that costs $20,000, $30,000 and takes a month to produce. So that right there is an advantage. Next one is also in content creation, because that also builds into the brand. So I think companies can compete with the larger companies by bringing in AI tools into their marketing and figuring out how can they execute with speed and how can they execute innovative ideas that amplify their story, because that's the only way you can compete. Otherwise, you don't. Most of the neocloud startups, they don't have enough money to go to every event that CoreWeave is at, every event that Nebius is at. That in itself, that's huge branding for them, right? Like if you can't be there at an event where CoreWeave or Nebius or Lambda is there, then you're not going to be able to build that brand. So you have to think outside the box.
I think that's the thing, isn't it, actually? Because if you rewind, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, for me, marketing was really, it was going to events and marketing mail outs. I think there was, I'm oversimplifying it, but that was certainly, some of the two sort of items within the war chest. But now we're talking about content creation and communities as two differentiators. And do you need a lot? You don't really need a lot of money for that, I suppose. It's about being smarter, and it's becoming more appealing and resonating with your audience, I suppose, is actually what you're trying to achieve.
Exactly. You don't need a lot of money to do. You're right that 5 years ago, marketing used to be this giant laundry list of, hey, here's all the things we do, right? Like you get a product launch, you have your PR, you have, your new website, you have like 20 social posts from everyone in the team. That's not the case anymore, right? Like, for example, there was a huge discussion, I think, on LinkedIn, where someone was talking about one of the AI companies, Artisan. I think they do AI SDRs. He was ribbing about, them taking, they just got recently funded, and then they went all out splashing billboards all over San Francisco. Phenomenal marketing. There are hundreds of AI SDR companies, but they're the only ones, if someone asks me, hey, what's an AI SDR company? They're the only one that I can think of. Right, that comes to the top of my mind. So if we have to implement something like that, that's the first one that I'm going to go to. Whether it works out or not, that's different. But marketing's job is to actually get someone in the door, and they've already done that with that, right? Like, but today, if you want to run a billboard in San Francisco, you don't need $10,000. You can run billboards that blip every minute for under $100. So, for example, if NVIDIA is hosting an event and you're in the AI cloud space, you can afford to have a booth, right? You can afford to have a booth at the event. Have a food cart right outside the event, right? Like costs you $2,000. Get 10 billboards, $100 each on the day of the event, right? Like have someone show up to the event, register with a t-shirt, right? With a QR code. There are ways that you can do. And these principles have always existed, but it's just that what it takes to execute on an idea has drastically come down in terms of cost and in terms of speed.
So, I mean, just the couple of final questions now. So, we just talked about how many, GPU AI sort of type businesses are out there now, and there's loads, and there'll be some more coming out tomorrow. I think that's just the reality. And often they're startups, and it's a CEO that's a software engineer really by trade, or it's somebody that's come from the energy space and they're looking to now jump on the HPC sort of bandwagon. And they think about, I need salespeople. They don't always think about marketing, but then they realize we need to do something. What should the startups within the AI GPU sort of community that's out there now be focusing on as their sort of first port of call within sort of tackling their marketing and their brand awareness?
The AI GPU cloud space, especially because they're startups. The kind of marketers that you need are not the kind of marketers from 5 years ago, which is, you need marketing generalists, or at least marketing specialists who are adept with AI tools. And again, I know I keep coming back to AI, and that's really because how marketing was done 5 years ago is not how it's done today. It's still being done today in a lot of companies, but for startups, you need speed, and speed comes with AI tools and marketing. You need creativity, and creativity comes from, a generalist who's actually seen all the different functions, right? Like someone who's done customer marketing, someone who's had a hand in product marketing. I think one of the biggest mistakes that startups make in the GPU cloud space or at least in any startup space, is they tend to overinvest in product marketing right at the beginning, right? Like,
Yeah.
and because there's this narrative that product marketing is really crucial to a startup, which it is, but when you're in Series A level, you need to find product market fit, and that means you need to keep running experiments, you need to keep running micro experiments, getting people in the door, see if they stick. If not, learn from it, come back and see if they stick. So that's why I think, yeah, startups need to focus on generalist marketers who can use AI to do the job of, 3 marketers. I think that's where they need to focus on. And then number 2 is, at least in the AI GPA cloud space, is find marketers who can actually build communities. If you can find a marketer who can build a community around your users, that's gold. Now you have a clear differentiator compared to others.
We might have to have another conversation about community building. I think people would want to hear it. So
Yeah,
might,
yeah,
might, might be something we need to do. Just as a bit of free advice for people, if you don't mind, you talk about AI tools that you think are pretty, valuable and can give you a real advantage and just get you moving forward quickly. Are there any particular AI tools that you've experienced that you particularly rate that you would sort of recommend as a quick toolkit?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite topics. Is actually, there's a website. There are 2 websites, Toolify.ai, and then there's an AIforthat.com. Right, like both of them have their massive AI directories, and they have they have over hundreds of tools in each category. Right, like voice AI, you want transcription, all of that. So, are there AI tools outside of ChatGPT that I would recommend? Yeah, one is there are AI ad creation tools, for example.
Yeah.
Right, like. Outside of the Canva, outside of what ChatGPT can create, there are AI ad creation tools that people can use now, where you can upload your ICP. You can upload 10 ICPs, and then you can upload, a couple of ad copies, and it will create 25 different ads for you, right? Like,
Wow.
so those tools are really, really valuable. The other one is AI image generation, right? Like not just ChatGPT, but tools like FreePic. FreePic is one of my favorites because with FreePic, even without a design team, you can create on-brand assets that can, you can create on-brand assets for anything, for your website, for your copy, for your PDFs, for your presentations, all of that. That again immediately accelerates the speed because now you don't need a design team anymore. You're going and using FreePic, something like FreePic. And then other AI tools specifically for marketers also is, I would say, look into the AI video creation tools because they, especially the AI avatar tools, they are worth their weight in gold, because now all of a sudden you can create an avatar of your CEO, you can create an avatar of your engineer, and you can create videos of them talking. You can use that in ads, you can use that for social posts. You can also create, whole ads for your product just with these AI video tools. Obviously, it's a little more intensive,
Yep.
takes a day or 2, but definitely much better than, spending a month creating a video ad. So yeah, I think those would be the biggest tools that I can think of for AI. And then the one other thing is also tools like Descript, what we're using, and tools like Riverside.
Yep.
Because one of the things that I hear from marketers often is, I can't, especially marketers for technical products like in the GPU cloud space, is my solutions consultants or my GPU engineers, they don't have time to create technical content, right? Because when I go and talk to these solutions consultants or these engineers, their feedback always is, yeah, I can create a video tutorial, but it's going to take me like 4 or 5 tries. I'm not really comfortable on camera, and then it takes me a lot of editing. With Riverside and Descript, we use these in marketing, but if you throw them over to an engineer and say, hey, here, just create this, and then it gives you a transcript, you can just cut, copy, paste, and then you can just deliver a polished 3-minute technical video that then I can put on our community, that then I can put on social. That's valuable, right? Like, say, I think any marketer today has to start from a tool like Toolify, or there's an AI for that, and then write down the things that they do and figure out where they can insert AI and actually, cut down the time it takes.
I suppose it's beneficial for anybody, but like yourself, that's in a standalone marketing role. I suppose those tools are freeing up a lot of hours and actually just increasing the quality of the work they do within a relatively modest budget.
Exactly. Yeah, it's I think without AI tools, I can be a solo marketer today. For example, we have a podcast at Salad, and I host a podcast with Riverside. I edit it in Descript, and it's all AI, right? Like my entire
Yeah.
pipeline is AI. And so what used to take weeks, 7 days or 10 days to turn around a podcast, now it takes me 2 hours, right? Like it's not a lot of my time, but for spending 2 or 3 hours a week, if I can get a high quality guest on my podcast who can also be a customer for Salad, that's actually a win. And that wasn't possible 5 years ago. And so, that's another thing that any AI startup, any GPU cloud startup, when they're looking to hire people, is they really need to see where their marketers are in terms of what AI tools they adopt in their process. If their answer is just ChatGPT, that in itself is a red flag, right? Like, because there's so many tools out there that are very specific to marketing functions that as a marketer, it is on you to learn and implement. And if you're still relying on just ChatGPT, you're already behind the game.
So if a CEO is interviewing a marketeer or somebody in the marketing function right now, that's a question they should be asking. That's the reality.
Yes. Ask your marketers, what are the 5 AI tools that they use in their everyday marketing life? Or ask them, what are the 5 functions or 5 everyday activities in their marketing life that they can automate with AI? Right? Like there's still that human creativity aspect that comes in. But what are the 5, for example, case studies, right? Like back in the days, I've written hundreds of case studies, listened to a customer, write notes, get transcript, run through and think through and write. Today, you can create a pipeline where transcript and then, GPT writes a case study in your own. It's trained on your previous case studies and all of that. So within 20 minutes, you can turn around a case study. Like, so for CEOs hiring marketers, ask your marketers what AI tools they use today and what are the functions that they can actually automate with AI.
It's going to make the difference. It's definitely the way the future's moving, isn't it? I mean, we're using a lot of AI tools. Obviously, Riverside is what we're using right now. So, and if we didn't have that, then we'll be using somebody external. It would be costing us a fortune. We'll be waiting for them to send it back. We can do it ourselves. So it's so vital. It definitely does help it moving forward. Well, look, I think that brings it to a nice sort of close. This has been a really insightful conversation. I think you're actually the first person that we've had that's worked on the marketing side of the business. So I think this is it's made it a little bit different to the typical shows that we've had so far. But I think people are going to learn a lot. So I think we definitely need to talk offline about bringing you back and talking about communities in a little bit more detail in the future, I think.
Yeah, it's a fun conversation. Yeah, the GP cloud space is growing massively. We're in a gold rush, and the only way people can actually get the gold is with the right marketing. Because this is not, my personal belief, it's not a sales-led motion. It's a very developer-led motion. And so, marketing being right there when developers are looking for a solution for the first time is crucial. And when you have 160 other clouds vying for that space, it's going to be very, very critical to be top of mind when companies come and look for GPUs. So it's a space that I love to talk about. So thanks for having me on the show, man.
Brilliant. Well, it's been great. Thank you very much, and we'll have you back next time.
All right, can't wait.
Take care. Cheers now. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I truly hope you got to take away something valuable. This episode was brought to you by Asobi. I'm the founder and managing director, and it's our goal to connect the very best talent with the most exciting scale-ups in AI, ML, and the DC space. If you're looking for more practical advice or just some inspiration from those that have been there and done it, stay with us. We're going to be releasing new episodes every week, so make sure you subscribe to the podcast and follow Asobi on LinkedIn so you don't miss a thing.